Kia ora and welcome. My name is Ellen Rose and this is the Creative Cure to Boredom. I've created this channel to share and explore some inventive approaches to art using everyday materials you can find in your own home. The hope is that it makes the current lockdown and isolation situation just a little bit more bearable. Now today I'm going to have a bit of a play with turning straws to stencils. So I watched this really interesting YouTube video where they just used an iron to iron together some straws and essentially they turned into a flat sheet of plastic. So I'm going to try to create an image using the same sort of process. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. Cheers! So I've got my image, which is a picture of an owl, and I've taped that to the table, and then I've taped some baking paper or some greaseproof paper over the top of that. That's so that nothing sticks, and if the iron melts anything onto the table, it's not going to go onto the table. It'll still get protected with the baking paper. So I've put some sellotape on top of that with the sticky side up, and that was a little bit fiddly to do, but I was very thankful that I spent the time doing it because it meant that the straws didn't run all over the table. When I put them down, they pretty much stayed in the position that I put them. I was finding some of those little pieces quite hard to handle though. But as you can see, I'm just lining up the straw and just cutting it to size. So I've just chosen two colours, the black and the white, and I'm just cutting sections of each to the size that I need to fill the vertical lines. And I haven't really straightened the top or the bottom. I left it a bit uneven. And if I cut them the wrong sort of length, I was trying to find somewhere that I could stick it down where it would fit instead. So I don't think, apart from the ones that sort of escaped off of the table when I cut them, I don't think I had too much waste from the ones that I used. I did find that holding both the end that I was cutting and the end that was coming off of it was the best way to cut them, otherwise they would ping all across the room. So I am trying to hold both ends with one hand. Because some of those really tiny bits were quite fiddly, I decided for some of the horizontal lines to actually put the straws following the lines rather than just going up and down in a vertical fashion. So you can see around the beak there, I've used those more line work rather than just going straight up and down with the shading. And I've had to cut some of them on a bit of an angle so that they would fit together. Anytime that the work went a bit askew, I just realigned it with the picture underneath. And I kept taking breaks doing the background to working on the form because it was getting a bit tedious, some of the particular shading in there. So it was a nice break to just do some flat white colour. I was wondering if maybe tweezers would have been helpful as well with this work. I do like to work with my hands, but possibly would have been helpful for placing or readjusting. And you can see here again with the second eye, I'm trying to follow the lines rather than just going straight up and down with the straws. And that makes a circle a lot easier than if I were to cut lots of little individual bits and put them in there. I'd be fiddling with that for quite a while to make sure that they were in the right place. So the straws that I'm using are like cocktail straws. They're a bit smaller than normal straws. And I think because of that, they're possibly a slightly different plastic than normal straws, which I possibly should have experimented with before doing this video. I will say that this video did take a couple of hours to make, but that time did fly by for me, so I actually did find it quite therapeutic. So I would recommend for people to give it a go, but possibly with some different straws. So when I started nearing the end, I put the iron on, and I'm using the iron much like you use the iron on something like hammer beads, if you've ever worked with them before. With hammer beads, you put them onto a little base that has little spokes on it, and essentially you're doing them in whatever pattern you like. You put some wax paper down on top of it and you iron on top, and then they all melt into each other, so they become a real solid plastic. So it's the same sort of process here. When I'm done with my image, I put some wax paper over the top of it. I put the iron down, and I want to put the iron down pretty flat and leave it solid and heating in certain areas before I'm moving it around, because I don't want those straws to move out of place. When I think it's done, I put a heavy book on top to try to keep it flat. So this is the end result. I wish I could say that it worked, but unfortunately this process did not work for me. The straws are extremely squashed from the iron, but they do not stick together, unfortunately. So maybe it's a matter of picking the right type of straws. Maybe I need to experiment with a few different brands or sizes to make sure that it works first, but at the moment we just have stuck together straws with some sticky tape. I did think that the cutting of the straws worked effectively to get the shape of the image, the stencil of the image. So I'm happy with that side of things. I just wish that it was a little bit more permanent. I even went back with a heat gun and tried to melt them together manually. But you can see here, all that did was create a hole, unfortunately. So they melted separate. They didn't even melt together in that circumstance. Anyway, I'd love to hear if you've tried a similar sort of process and if you've had it working successfully. So please do leave comments and suggestions below. My name is Ellen Rose. This has been the Creative Cure to Boredom. Till next time, ngā mihi nui.